This is the OTB Television Network, a service of Capital District Off-Track Betting.
It's Golden Sense in full flight for the wire over flashback, and Golden Sense have won the Santa Anita Derby.
Orb have won the Kentucky Derby. Thurston McGee will take charge, is surging, and it's a photo finish. It's too close to call.
And Animal Kingdom wins the Dubai World Cup.
Macho Man!
Broadcasting live from the Capital OTB studios, this is Racing Across America with Seth Merrow.
Good morning and welcome to Racing Across America on this Thursday morning. Seth Merrow, thanks for joining us. A little bit later on, Thursday morning means a visit from John DeSilva, racingwithbruno.com. We'll talk a little bit about racing this afternoon, get some thoughts on this past weekend as well, and also look forward. I mean, it is Derby time. Start to get some thoughts from folks on Derby as we've been doing all week. Coming up a little bit later than that, again, Thursday morning means Dave Rodman from Pimlico. Certainly we'll talk a little bit about last weekend at Pimlico, a nice card of stakes action, get some ideas for this afternoon as well. All of that on this Thursday edition of Racing Across America. Some of the news this is actually going back a couple of days, I guess, but the Breeders' Cup and NBC Sports have announced an expansion of televised races. They will be picking up some of the Breeders' Cup Win and You're In races. There will be 11 telecasts on either NBC or the NBC Sports Network that will feature 18 Win and You're In races. There will also be additional media pluses, such as a new website dedicated to the Challenge Series with unique content. There will be a Breeders' Cup $1 Million Finish, a national consumer promotion that will allow fans to play along at home for prizes. There'll be an on-site experience for owners, which will include the Champion Terrace, where winning participants can revel in the sweet taste of victory. And so obviously there is the Breeders' Cup and NBC are doing kind of an all-encompassing partnership here. But the notable thing as far as racing and racing fans are concerned, a series of 11 broadcasts, and just kind of going down here and looking, we're going to include Belmont, Santa Anita, Monmouth, Saratoga, Del Mar, Santa Anita, and Keeneland will be the tracks that will be involved. Things will kick off as far as this Breeders' Cup Win and You're In NBC partnership on Saturday, June 7th at NBC, Metropolitan Mile, and the Ogden Phipps. And that Phipps is shaping up to be huge. So certainly that is going to attract a lot of attention. On the 28th, they'll have the Gold Cup out at Santa Anita. July 5th, the Belmont Oaks. July 27th, the Haskell at Monmouth. August 2nd, they're up at Saratoga for 3 broadcasts from Saratoga. August 2nd, they have the Whitney and the Tests. August 23rd, they have the Ballerina and the Travers. August 24th is the Pack Classic out at Del Mar. And then they're back to Saratoga for the 30th of August, Forgo and the Woodward. On Saturday, September 7th, they're at Belmont and Santa Anita, Jockey Club, Gold Cup, and the Awesome Again Stakes at Santa Anita. Jockey Club Gold Cup, obviously, at Belmont. Saturday, October 4th, they're at Keeneland for 3 races, and then the next day, again, at Keeneland for a couple more races, including the Spinster. So a really nice schedule of stakes action, including a number of Breeders' Cup Win and You're In races. NBC and the NBC Sports Network partnership announced. So hats off to the racing industry for getting that done, because it seems like this year there's some nice exposure for horse racing on television. And along those same lines, there was an article in the Racing Forum. You can look it up. I don't think I have it linked on Equidaily yet. We'll have it up later today. But Bob Marks has written an article in the Racing Forum. Harness needs a TV plan. And he talks about lately there has been considerable banter over the feasibility of broadcasting major races on a cable sports network. And should such an undertaking occur, how could it be funded, and is it actually worthwhile doing so? Again, from the harness point of view. In that harness racing is no longer an on-track exclusive, it would seem logical to get it out there wherever out there happens to be. He talks about the thoroughbred industry. The Derby is a big day, but television also covers the lead up, which then introduces folks to the contenders for the Derby. Obviously, this Breeders' Cup Series, which I just talked about, will introduce the big horses that will run on Breeders' Cup Day. He says, conversely, we'll broadcast the Hambletonian, and other than the industry-related or simulcast patrons, few know the top contenders because there is no lead-up on the harness side. And then he talks a little bit about, and I thought about it immediately as I started reading the article. I think those of us up here remember the days of when cable television first started to spread out across the country, and certainly made it here to upstate New York. Channel 9 down in New York had both the Saturday afternoon show on the thoroughbred side with Frank Wright and Charles C. Canny, but then you also had Stan Bergstein, who did the harness side on Saturday nights, again on Channel 9 WOR. So that's really my memory of broadcast television covering horse racing early on, particularly on the harness side, those Saturday night programs on WOR. And Bob Marks mentions that in his article, although he says on what I believe was WPIX Channel 11. Pretty sure they were both on Channel 9 WOR from New York. But again, other than that, harness racing, as he says, the Hambletonian gets some coverage. Other than that, there is not much coverage on the harness side for national television. So it was an interesting article, and it's interesting to think of how would that industry fund it? Would it be worthwhile? He raises some of those questions. Again, an article in the Racing Forum by Bob Marks, talking a little bit about television and the harness industry. I think it's an interesting subject that probably should be explored a little bit. Again, more announcements from the industry on the upcoming season and changes being made, Breeders' Cup coverage on television. But Saratoga in particular, they've come out with their stake schedule, and there is a little bit of a shakeup as far as that is concerned, particularly purse-wise. The Whitney purse has been doubled from $750,000 up to $1.5 million. And it's interesting because the Whitney is now worth more than the Travers. Travers has also had a purse boost, but the Travers is now only 1.25, $1.25 million. So Whitney, $1.5 million, Travers, $1.25 million now. Some of the other stakes races of note and purse-related news. Sword Dancer is cut from $600,000 to $500,000. The previously announced Saratoga Showcase Day, that's on the stakes schedule on August 24th. It's going to feature 6 stakes races restricted to New York breds, highlighted by the $250,000 Albany. Among races that have had their purses boosted, the Grade 3 Saranac, $150,000 to $300,000, Lake Placid from $200,000 to $300,000, and the Spinaway and Hopeful have both gone from $300,000 to $350,000. And the other notable news was Whitney Day has really been boosted with a nice stakes card. Again, $1.5 million for the Whitney. The undercard will include the $500,000 test, the $350,000 Alfred G. Vanderbilt, also the De La Rose and the Lure stakes races. So a big card coming up on Saturday, August 2nd at Saratoga, highlighted by now the $1.5 million Whitney. And I said earlier on the Handicappers Report, this year's Whitney, you know, it's early, things are going to shake out and change certainly, but at this point, this handicap division this year is shaping up to be a lot of fun. And the main contenders in it, really virtually all the connections have Saratoga in their summer plans. They do year in and year out. Horses like Will Take Charge and Wayne Lucas and the other Palace Malice and Todd Pletcher. So I think this Whitney this year could be shaping up to be very, very good. Other New York news, David Jacobson. He is going to have a string at Monmouth this summer, it's been announced. And Jacobson said he's making the move because the NYRA officials plan to limit the number of horses trainers can have stabled at one New York track. So Jacobson says he will have 35 horses at Monmouth while maintaining a full barn over at Aqueduct. He's quoted in the Racing Forum as saying, "It just seems now is the time to do it, being the stalls are going to be cut back here in New York." He said he's been looking at a summer string in Monmouth for a while now, and again, this seems like a perfect time. And as he mentions, and it is very logical, it's a location that will allow him also to ship around. He's saying from there I can ship to parks in Delaware, and he's a guy who I think the game he plays, a lot of it in the claiming game, he's looking at condition books and looking to ship around a little bit. So that could be a good mix for him and the folks at Monmouth as well. So, leading New York trainer David Jacobson, still be in New York, but he's also going to have a string this summer over at Monmouth. Last weekend was a big stakes weekend. It was fun. There was a lot of interesting stakes. You had the Charlestown Classic and the Lexington, the Tessio at Pimlico, diverse various age divisions and whatnot. It was a fun weekend. This weekend on the thoroughbred side, it's a little quieter, but I do want to alert you, talk a little bit about harness racing, the potential that they might chase for being on national television and what could happen there. But just on the racing side this weekend, at Yonkers, it will be the George Morton Levy Memorial Pacing Series, over $500,000 on the line, and that's notable because Foiled Again will be in that race. And Foiled Again, the now 10-year-old, the richest harness racing horse in North American history. He has over $6 million in earning. He's been named the Dan Patch Award winner for Best Older Male Pacer each of the last 3 years. 80 wins, Foiled Again this is, 80 wins in 203 lifetime starts. And he won the Levy Series at Yonkers in both 2009 and 2010. So here he is back in 2014. That'll certainly be one to take a look at on Saturday night. On Friday night at Northfield, keep your eyes on the 11th at Northfield on Friday night. It is the Courageous Lady for 3-year-old fillies, a purse of $110,000. There is a runner in there named Kyla Grace, who 15 for 15 so far. So anytime a horse can put together a string like that, it's worth paying a little bit of attention to, and puts that undefeated streak on the line. Again, Friday night at Northfield in the Courageous Lady. It is Kyla Grace going for a record of 16 for 16. They can't beat that. On Derby news, mentioned it on the Handicappers Report earlier, and this is very interesting because clearly it has bubble connotations, bubble horse connotations. She too, the Bob Baffert runner, earlier had been announced as an entrant in the Derby trial, opening night, Saturday night at Churchill Downs. And in fact, she too was entered. The past performances, the entries have come out. Baffert entered both Bayern and she too in the Derby trial, but subsequently, Baffert has said she too will skip the Derby trial and go in the Kentucky Derby. Baffert said Martin Garcia will ride. Bayern also entered in the Derby trial. Bayern currently at number 23 on the points leaderboard for the Kentucky Derby. So he would need things to shake up. But Baffert has said if things do shake up and Bayern he thought could get in, he would skip the trial and go to the Kentucky Derby. But he's a little bit out of the mix here. It just, looking at the field right now, the 20 top points horses, there is not a lot of room in there unless, again, somebody comes up with a ding. And being 23, you need, a couple to maybe hit the sidelines. Number 21 right now is Commanding Curve. I think a lot of people over the past week or so, certainly I've talked to here on the show, have at least mentioned Commanding Curve as an interesting horse for them. The West Point runner, again, sitting at 21. So that move by Shitu certainly is affecting that one. We'll see what happens. And again, this year, as last year, there will be an AE list also for the Kentucky Derby, although that only lasts until the early bird betting starts on Friday. So we'll see how things shake out. We still have a week to go before entries are drawn, better part of a week, and we'll see how things shake out. But right now, the absolute bubble horse, number 21 on the list, is Commanding Curve. 22 Pablo Diamante, 23 Bayern, 24 Social Inclusion. And as I say, it doesn't seem like there's a lot of wiggle room there with horses that are on the fence. I think the horses that are in the top 20 are, at this point, I think pretty much committed, unless, maybe bad training or something, maybe somebody will step away. So we'll see how that shakes out. And do want to note an article from Dick Girardi in the Daily Racing Form. Headline, California Chrome looks best by a lot. And I'm going to be really interested to see over the next week how this starts to shake out, because I think this is the consensus among the pundits and the fans. And Dick Girardi writes, I see California Chrome playing the role of Big Brown. He just looks better than this group, and not by a little. But then he adds, and I think we're all kind of in this boat, but is California Chrome a lock? If this were a 6-horse race on a Wednesday with similar spreads and quantifiable ability, I would say yes. But then he notes it's the Derby. There's 20 horses. There's everything that goes with it. Girardi adds, I have liked California Chrome for 2 months. I still like California Chrome. And then he mentions, what about the competition? Can you find, can you use the favorite California Chrome and then maybe find value underneath? And he mentions only 5. He says 13. There have been 13 other 3-year-olds besides California Chrome who have hit triple-digit buyer figures. Only 5 of the 12 besides California Chrome are likely Derby runners. General A-Rod, Wildcat Red, Danza, and then Girardi says the ones that he gives the most concern to, Opportunity and Wicked Strong. And again, over the next week, I think we're going to see this start to shake out more and more. Folks are going to tilt towards California Chrome. I think Opportunity, Wicked Strong will certainly attract some attention. For me, though, Danza is maybe a little bit notable as a horse who could prove to be kind of interesting there, just as I say, getting right at the right time. So we'll see. All right, we'll take our first break. As we come back, John DeSilva from Racing with Bruno will join us. We'll get some of his thoughts on last weekend. I want to get some thoughts on him for Verdad and the Distaff. Really a nice filly and mare sprint performance this past weekend. We'll talk racing this afternoon. And as we are approaching the Derby, get some of his early Derby thoughts as well. So John DeSilva, right after this.
Missed one of our TV shows? No worries. Now you can catch all your favorite programs online. Simply log on to CapitalOTB.com and click on the YouTube link at the bottom of the homepage. And look for our new podcast coming soon. CapitalOTB.com. Log on today.
The Capital OTB Handicapping Challenge Series is back. That's right. The 2014 Capital OTB Handicapping Challenge Series is back, and it's your chance to win thousands in cash and prizes, and a seat at the 2015 Handicapping Championship in Las Vegas. This month's contest is the Triple Threat on May 10th. So sign up today, online at CapitalOTB.com, or stop in at the Clubhouse Racebook.
The future of online betting is here, and only at the all-new CapitalOTBBet.com. With a newly designed and engineered internet wagering platform, enhanced video streaming, additional funding options, and 3 new individual wagering opportunities, CapitalOTBBet.com delivers a state-of-the-art wagering experience found nowhere else in horse racing. Combine that with our all-new mobile website. You have 2 of the most powerful, innovative, and advanced wagering platforms available today. CapitalOTBBet.com. Log on today.
It's called the fastest 2 minutes in sports, and the tradition continues Saturday, May 3rd with the 140th running of the Kentucky Derby. If you can't make it to the Clubhouse Racebook in Albany, you can still be a part of the action by visiting one of our many Easy Bet or branch locations conveniently located throughout upstate New York. For a complete list of our Easy Bet and branch locations, log on to CapitalOTB.com. Capital OTB and CapitalOTBBet.com. The most convenient ways to wager on all the Triple Crown races.
I'm Anthony Mormino. Join me weekdays at 9 for the Handicappers Report. We'll handicap the top tracks across the country and help you prepare for the day in racing. That's the Handicappers Report, weekdays at 9, only on the OTB TV network.
Welcome back to Racing Across America. Thursday morning means a regular visit from John DeSilva of RacingWithBruno.com. Good morning, John.
Good morning. How's everything?
Very good. Happy to have you on board. And, John, before we talk a little bit about this afternoon, I wanted to go back to last weekend. When we had you on last week, we did a little preview of the Distaff down at Aqueduct this past Saturday. And boy, La Verdad, we kind of agreed this was going to be the horse to beat. Certainly, this is a nice 4-year-old filly sprinter. And the previous week, it looked like Judy the Beauty might have stepped to the head of that subdivision of filly and mare sprinters. But I think, and we'll watch the stretch run here, number 1, La Verdad, will get it done for trainer Linda Rice. And with this race in the distaff, I think she stamped herself as a competitor in that division as well.
No doubt about it. I mean, when I looked at La Verdad, her past performances, I said, I think she's a better main track horse if she wasn't in a track horse. And the way she ran last week, I certainly think that is the case. I mean, this is a horse who's going great for Linda Rice. I mean, she just goes out there and blows them away, and I'm hoping she runs into vagrancy. It would be nice if we could get Winning Image and Tony Black to show up in the vagrancy to put that nice little matchup together. Yeah. But La Verdad, I mean, hey, Judy Beauty, she's got some competition right now.
Yeah, you're right. That would be great. Have Tony Black come up with Winning Image as well. And we have Dave Rodman on a little bit later. We're going to talk about Winning Image and Tony Black and Kid Cruz as well. And speaking of Linda Rice, how about Kid Cruz in the Tessio?
Okay, I mean, what can we say? He did what he was supposed to do. I mean, is he the elite? Probably not, but he's a good 3-year-old who probably will be born into the Preakness yet. I'm not saying he's going to be a Preakness contender. Let's see how things shake up in the Derby first, but at least he's an improving horse as well. And again, for Linda, as an experienced horseman, she could use a horse like this just to put it back on the map nationally.
Yeah, it was a good follow-up to that incredible performance in the private terms. And number-wise, it didn't jump off the page. But I thought, given the early pace, and he was a little closer, but he still was off the pace, I thought at the top of the stretch with those fractions, I thought he'd have trouble reeling them in, but he reeled them in like they were standing still. So he'll be fun to watch regardless in the Preakness. And certainly I think there'll be some rooting interest there. Let's also talk about another division on the female side, and that is potentially shaping up to be the real nice race this summer with the Ogden Phipps or late spring. But it's notable because this past Sunday, Beholder won her seasonal debut, but prior we'd seen good performances from Close Hatches and Princess of Silmar. That Phipps is shaping up to be a bang-up race.
I'm hoping everybody shows up. I mean, I wasn't thrilled hearing the Beholder's taking 1-week vacation already, which makes you wonder what's going on out there. But if they could all show up, hey, who knows who still could. I mean, we got Grace Hall coming back. If she could come back and do some, be halfway decent. Between that, the Phipps, between the potential of the Whitney with the $1.5 million purse, hey, there's one reason why they raised the $1.5 million. They wanted to be the race of the year. And they are attracting not only the best of the East Coast, but it's hard for Bob Baffert to say no to $1.5 million as you see him do at Charlestown. So maybe they want Game On Do to come out to Saratoga for Whitney as well.
That's a good point, because I don't think Baffert has a particular affinity for Saratoga. But as you noted, that $1.5 million attracted him to Charlestown, and certainly adding Game On Dude to the mix. This handicap division is fun. The Whitney looks at this point like it could be an absolute bang-up race. But let me ask you this. I talked about it at the top of the show, the purse boosts for Saratoga this summer. What do you think with the Whitney being worth more than the Travers?
That is very surprising, because the Travers is really the staple, but then again, it's the Whitney name, Mary Lou, and everything else. And maybe because of television coverage, they want to promote it as the richest race to be shown on television other than the Breeders' Cup. That might have something to do with it. I mean, all probably because of marketing as well, which could be the reason why. But I'm thinking probably next year you might see a change with that. But for this year, they probably want to try this to see what happens.
Yeah, I found it very interesting, and I agree with you. This year may be a little bit of a trial balloon, and we'll see how it shakes out. But it was kind of interesting when the schedule was announced, that those purse changes. All right, John, let's take a look at some of the Aqueduct action for this afternoon. We'll kick things off in the third race today, a maiden claimer, $25,000 tags, 3-year-olds and up. They're going 6.5, and boy, they like that 6.5 trip this afternoon.
Yes, they do. Lots of 6.5. We'll have 6.5 at Belmont, but, they want to try something a little different. You got 3 to 5 on the entry of Trace Screen and Bona. Now, Trace Screen, shipping up from Fairhill, first-time starter. You know that's not the one they're betting on. They're all betting on Bona, who first time for Pat Reynolds, finished third as the favorite. Now try Maiden Claimers for the first time for Paul Papa. Okay. 3 to 5, asking a little bit too much there. I mean, on paper, is a horse the best? Yes. But when you see Papa willing to lose a horse like this, who he paid $275,000 for, dropping it for $25, I don't think he's doing it just to get a win. So you have to say buyer beware here. So as a bettor, it's the same exact thing. Do you really want to take up that short of a price on a horse who he's begging people to put? He's begging David Jacobson to take him, because that's the type of horse Jacobson would take, and probably send him on it afterwards. So to me, I'm going to try to beat it, and I'm going to go with number 2, Brendan G. This is a horse 2 starts back for $40,000. In a second by a length. Last time out going 7 furlongs, the horse tired badly against Divine Energy. Comes back for a tag today. Might have a little bit better early speed than the favorite. So I'm hoping Katie Davis goes out there, gets aggressive, does the right thing, and upsets here.
Yeah, and I'm also looking, Samurai Assault looks kind of interesting to me, too, off the claim, but threw a pretty nice number in last time and really just got nipped after having had the lead late in the race. So Samurai Assault, also, I like your horse, but I like Samurai Assault a little bit as well. And I like the thinking overall on the 3 to 5 entry. That does look like one it's worth taking a shot against.
And like I said, when you get a horse, $275,000 that they paid for. And look, when they paid, it wasn't like they bought this horse at that price as a yearling. This was in last year, you know, that they paid this much money, and they're already willing to give it away. That's not a good sign. Yeah,
absolutely. All right, let's look out at this afternoon's 6th race at Aqueduct. That is a conditional claiming event. $25,000 tags, non-winners of 3 lifetime 3-year-olds and up. Again, 6.5.
Well, you got the favorite Ed's Magic here, who I'm definitely going to try to beat, and I'm going to go with number 7, Fly by Pomeroy. This is a horse who, coming back off a layoff from October, started Lowndes Company, chased pace before tiring, gets Saludos Amigos, who came back to win. Now drops back down for a tag today. The last time this horse ran for a tag, the horse won the non-wins of 2 lifetime at Penn National, going 6th. You got Angel Royer riding for Steve Casares here, and I'm thinking at 5 to 1, I'll take Fly by Pomeroy.
Absolutely, and again, won the N2L condition a couple of starts back. That was last October, but it looks like a nice foundation for the seasonal debut last time to build off of. So Fly by Pomeroy, I agree, 5 to 1 looks very interesting. And let's look out today at the 8th race, optional claiming event, state breds, 30 tags, non-winners of 2 other than the condition, 3-year-olds and up. They'll go the 1-turn mile.
Now, morning line here, we definitely have an overlay, because there's no way in the world this horse is going to get close to this morning line of 10 to 1, Ultimate Empire. Yes, the horse is 0 for 10 on a fast dirt track, but the horse is 8 for 10 in the money on a fast dirt track. He actually did finish first on a fast dirt track last year at Saratoga, but then got disqualified and placed second. But he's as consistent as they come on the dirt. He just hasn't been able to win too much. But if you're going to get 5 to 1 or higher, I mean, like 10 to 1, then you're not going to see that. I mean, Andy Sterling will make sure that doesn't happen. But I would say if you can get 5 to 1 in this horse, you definitely run to the windows here.
Albatroni, West Point, I agree. Looks like certainly a worthwhile proposition. If that morning line holds up, or as you say, even starts to float down a little bit, it'll still be worthwhile. All right, there are some thoughts for racing at Aqueduct this afternoon, John. As it is, we're less than a week and a half away from the Kentucky Derby. We'll have you on again next week, and we'll get some final close-up thoughts. But we can make some early decisions now. And I talked a little bit earlier, there was the Dick Girardi column in the Racing Forum where he said what I think is what a lot of people are thinking. California Chrome just seems to have an edge on this bunch. And I was on with my Sunday partner, Steve Bick. I was on his radio show yesterday, and he was saying kind of something similar to Girardi. California Chrome certainly looks to have the talent, but it's the Kentucky Derby. There's 20 horses. It's a mile and a quarter. It's a whole different ball of wax. So do you go with that one, or you take a shot against? And Vic said he was probably going to take a shot against. I think I'm in the same boat, but California Chrome's going to take a lot of attention. Which way are you going to tilt?
You definitely have to take a shot against, because you have to look at it a few different ways when it comes to wagering, because with what Churchill Downs did with all the future books, betting that they had in the past, some people could protect themselves with bets and they can make money. For example, in Pool 1, how many horses, individual horses from Pool 1 are running in the Derby right now?
Oh, I don't know. Do you know?
1.
Oh, really? Oh, wow. Okay, there you go. There you go.
And Ride on Curlin, who went off at 57 to 1. So basically, if you get a field Ride on Curlin exacta, which you will get as soon as the gates open, that's $203 you're getting.
When you talk Pool 1, are you talking that new 2-year-old pool they had this year?
Yeah.
Yeah, that one. Oh, wow, that's amazing. Okay, very good.
So anybody that wheeled the field, you're getting back a $203 payoff as soon as the gates open if Ride on Curlin doesn't win.
Very good. Yeah, that's and you could kind of see that coming, because obviously the field has been such a good bet in previous years in what was the first and the second pool, and those were the ones that came after January. So you could extrapolate that out to the 2-year-old pool. Yeah, absolutely. That's very interesting. No question about it. So,
and the 2-year-old pool, you can get California Chrome, I think, at 30 to 1.
Oh, there you go.
So imagine being alive with that coming into the Kentucky Derby. I mean, it's just an incredible payoff. You get 30 to 1 on the favorite, probably going to go off at 3 to 1 to 7 to 2. So people who made those type of bets, you can now fool around with other types of bets. And one bet I always love is the Oaks Derby Double, because last year it paid over $600 with Princess of Silmar and Orb. And you don't necessarily have to pick the winner. You can just spread around a little bit, and you can get some great value, because there's so much money bet into the Kentucky Derby. You go out there and do it. Now, for ego purposes, if you want to pick the winner, which we all want to do, of course, do I want to be California Chrome? Yeah, because you have a lot of unknown factors that you don't know how this horse is going to handle shipping out of California, running in Kentucky. You don't know how Sherman's going to handle it, because he's not the type of guy who normally ships out too much. I mean, with all the speed that we have in there as well, I mean, yes, California Chrome's been on close to the pace, but we think he comes from off the pace. But as we know, sometimes it's not the best horse that wins, but the luckiest horse that wins. And to me, I want horses to come from off the pace. A horse like Wicked Strong, I really like Blood in the Wood. I think he's coming into the race very nice. I mean, what Danza did at Oaklawn Park shocked us all, but he might be coming good at the right time. I mean, you just have to be willing to take chances, and to me, I don't want the speed horses. I want these horses coming from off the pace.
And let me ask you, as a New York guy, let me ask you about a horse that again, on the pace factor, I'm probably going to take a little bit of a stand against. We'll see how it shakes out over the next week or so. I certainly haven't gotten married to anybody at this point. But let me ask your opinion. Samrat.
He's tough. He's game. He's the type of horse I'm probably going to use. I'm probably not going to use him that big, but to me, I can see Samrat being the type of horse who he may not win, but he might be an exotic, horse who's going to be in some point of the exotics, because look at some of these horses who've been second or third or fourth. Maybe not exactly the best horses, the winners, but they're good enough and they're game enough to be in there at the end. And to me, Samrat has shown that he's game enough to be in the money.
Yeah, and again, like I say, I'm feeling like I'll take a stand against, but I haven't decided completely yet. And just on that, he's so game. He's one of those horses that it's hard to play against, because he's just always there, and so it's certainly very interesting. And you alluded to it before, John, searching around and playing some different wagers and trying to find some value. Let me ask, because I know for me, the Derby is such a different animal. I think you can play it much differently than you play everyday races. For instance, I don't think it's crazy in the Kentucky Derby to take a little shot, for maybe $1 and do a 7-horse exacta box. For $1, that costs you $42. But if you look at the payoffs on the exacta over the past 5 or 10 years, you're up in the hundreds of dollars, 500, sometimes up in 4 figures. And certainly every day you wouldn't take a shot like that. It'd be crazy. A 7-horse box on most days at most tracks and most races, it would just be a crazy bet. But the Derby is such a unique animal. Let me ask you, do you find that your betting strategy is significantly different?
Oh, definitely. I mean, for example, I talked about the Oaks Derby Double before. You could wheel, and as long as you can beat the favorite, chances are you're going to make money. So even though you might be thinking, who wants to wheel 20 horses? If you like a horse that much in the Oaks, why not? Because you'll get value there. With the exacta boxes, of course, you're not going to go and get a $20 price on the exacta. If I remember correctly, I think the favorite exacta last year was around $60 from remembering what the waging was like, and it's going to be wide open. So to me, if that's going to be the case, why wouldn't I want to go out there and take advantage? Because you have all these possibilities of what could happen at the end. I mean, let's face it, some of these results we've had in the past, I mean, we've only had, 2 favorites win in the past couple of years, and the lowest one was Big Brown paying $240, but then you look at who ran second to him, you had 8 Bells who went off at 13-1. So you got yourself a great exacta there. I mean, you have to take advantage of these exotics that's presented to you because chances are it's going to be paying minimum of 3 figures, and if you don't put yourself in position, you're not going to collect. So you have to be aggressive and try to take a shot.
Yeah, and I think we have to really impress that on people, again, who are maybe new to the game or don't play that often or whatever. The Derby is such a different animal. You have to maybe be willing to take a shot that other days would be totally illogical, but it's worthwhile because there's so much value to be had there on Derby Day. John, as always, we appreciate the visit, and as noted, we'll catch up with you next week where things will be much more firmed up and we'll get some real opinions on the Derby next week. But again, good luck this afternoon, and we'll talk to you next Thursday.
Good luck. Take care.
John DeSilva, again, racingwithbruno.com. If you go to that website, you can find John's selections every racing day, racingwithbruno.com. We'll take our next break. When we come back, Dave Rodman from Pimlico. Stay tuned.
The future of online betting is here, and only at the all-new CapitalOTBBet.com. CapitalOTBBet.com delivers a state-of-the-art wagering experience found nowhere else in horse racing. CapitalOTBBet.com. Log on today.
Fascinated by the world of horse racing? Interested in honing your handicapping skills? Class is in session. Night school, Monday nights. Easy to access online. It's free, interactive, and informative for the casual and serious race fan. Horse Player Now Buzz. Live horses to watch, emailed to you daily. Our eyes, your prize. Night School in the Buzz. Visit horseplayernow.com for details.
Each morning on the OTB TV network, you get the very best in horse racing programming. Weekdays begin with the Handicappers Report, where professional handicappers share their selections and analysis of the day's racing. Followed by Racing Across America, a daily conversation with racing personalities from around the country. Saturdays include Down the Stretch, where Mark Casano speaks with the biggest names in racing. And Sunday mornings, it's Loose on the Lead, where Steve Bick and I offer news and a unique lineup of weekly guests. All here on the OTB TV network.
Funding your Capital OTB bet account is as easy as 1, 2, 3. 1. Easy Money. Clearly the fastest and easiest method of depositing funds into your account. Make deposits or withdrawals in just minutes. 2. Green Dot Money Pack. Gives you instant access to your funds. Green Dot Money Packs are available at thousands of retailers nationwide. And 3. MasterCard Visa. Simply click on the link from the funding page, enter your account information, and fund your account. CapitalOTBBet.com. Log on today.
It's called the fastest 2 minutes in sports, and the tradition continues Saturday, May 3rd with the 140th running of the Kentucky Derby. And there's only one place to watch it, the Clubhouse Racebook. To be a part of the excitement, reserve your seat today by calling 446-4010.
Welcome back to Racing Across America. Always happy to be joined by Dave Rodman from Pimlico. Good morning, Dave.
Good morning, Seth. Sitting by the Stakes barn here and watching them repaint everything, getting ready for the Preakness.
I was going to say, a couple of weeks, things will be buzzing over there, no question about it. All that said, things were buzzing this past Saturday down at Pimlico, potentially with a nice Preakness horse as well, and we'll touch on that in a second. But before we get to this afternoon, I did want to take a look back at least a couple of those stakes from Saturday and get some of your thoughts. First up, we're going to watch the stretch run of the Primanetta last Saturday. $100,000 for 3-year-old and up fillies and mares going 6 furlongs. We're going to watch the stretch run where the number 3 Winning Image will get it done. And I'll tell you, at the top of the stretch, I thought number 3 Winning Image might get swallowed up, but no. And more importantly, it was the venerable Tony Black getting it done on Winning Image with really a gutsy performance down the stretch here. Very impressive and a lot of fun that Tony was on board.
Yeah, Tony Black, and he did his dismount in the winner's circle with, I don't know what you call it there, but anyway, it was fun. The crew was happy. I mean, it's both Winning Image and Tony Black, pure pros. A horse like that, like you said, top of the stretch, same here. I looked at her and I said, well, she could put up a battle, but she could fade. She could, but a horse like that has both class and speed, and that's a tough combination. And I think it was even more remarkable here at Pimlico, where that kind of move maybe is not the right move, sprinting, but Tony did a great job in sensing maybe the rail is kind of not the place to be. It's not completely dead, but with a horse like that, you didn't want to get her down on the inside, and he kept her kind of toward the better part of the track. And though she went fast, she was able to save enough to let her class come through in the final furlong and hold off a host of challengers. But a good race, I thought, from Do Something as well. She continues her ascent here, proving she's just not a horse for the Laurel Park course.
Yeah, she was coming off 3 straight wins and ran second in there as the second favorite. And I'm just looking, Winning Image was actually the 4th favorite in the race at 7-2. Kind of surprising there, a speedball like that.
Yeah, well, Keith and I, Keith Fusel, our morning line maker, talked about this race for a good half an hour. He was really torn on who they were really going to make the favorite in there, and I don't think either one of us thought that they'd kind of go to the horse, the 2 horse who had won the Miss Preakness last year.
Yeah, I'm Mom's favorite.
Yeah, I'm Mom's favorite. Yeah, who was kind of 2 for 2, but it switched out of Dutt Rose Barn, and though she seemed kind of back in form, maybe. Numbers weren't as good as last year, but somebody really liked her. She had a bad trip from the inside, I thought, but that was a tough race to line. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, and it proved that way when the bettors started betting. Now let's look out at what was the highlight of the afternoon. Everybody was waiting for what wound up to be the favorite in the Tessio, Kid Cruise, 6-5 going off. We'll watch the stretch run here. The number 7, Kid Cruise, will get it done. Obviously, off of that last Come From the Clouds private terms, this one was attracting a lot of attention. Kid Cruise was up closer on Saturday. The number 7 horse again here as you watch the stretch run. But I'll tell you, top of the stretch, and even about here, I'm not quite sure he's going to get it done off of that 3/4 fraction of 1/16. But when the after jets went on, he ran right on by him.
Yeah, I think he got around an 89, was it, or a 90 by or something like
89.
that for the win. But you really can't put a whole lot of stock in that. I think he can certainly run faster with a proper pace, suitable setup up front, which he did not have. But kudos to Kid Cruise for being able to adapt to that walking kind of a pace and yet still be able to kick it in. Again, just like the private terms, he was against the private terms that he won at Laurel. He was against some horses who were a bit suspect at the distance. So, I don't want to say it was an optical illusion, but, he likes Pimlico, and he was straight as could be this time around. Obviously, he's over his shoulder issues, and he could be a little better than an 89-90 buyer indicates, and he's an interesting long shot prospect, particularly with the way the track has been playing here in Maryland for the Preakness to possibly hit the board, maybe like a Magic Wisner kind of type if I'm rolling.
And we're lightly raced. now has put a couple of stakes wins together to follow up a close-up second-place finish in the 3 starts since the claim. So, yeah, I think he's interesting. And I'm with you. When I saw that 89 buyer, I thought, that's maybe a little light for us stepping into the Preakness. But, again, off the fractions, that may be, as you say, a little bit of an optical illusion kind of a number.
Yeah, I mean, when he really got going, it looks like he wanted to go around again. So, very adaptable kind of horse here. Interesting, we talked about it earlier, a $50,000 claim from a Black Swan stable, and they bought back into him after his new connections claimed him. So I don't think they really wanted to lose him. So everybody's happy all around, I think.
Yeah, and it was, again, a fun afternoon of racing on Saturday down at Pimlico. Let's talk a little bit about Thursday afternoon. First up, what's the weather look like down at Pimlico today?
Right now, about 52, 53. You know, if you stand out in the sunshine, you still need to wear a little bit of a jacket. So a little bit of a brisk wind here, light wind rather, and temperature is still a little bit light for springtime, but a real nice day. Can't complain after all the snow we had this winter.
And 10-cent pick 5, we still have a carryover rolling along?
Right. We have a $50,000 guarantee to a 10-cent single unique winning ticket. We'll exceed that pool today. It's close to 50 now. And also a trip to Baltimore to see the Preakness, all expenses paid. If you are that single unique winning ticket, the only ticket in the 10-cent jackpot pick 5, it carries over if nobody is a single ticket. It does pay 5 of 5, but then the carryover continues.
Excellent. All right, let's take a look at some of the action today. Third race at Pimlico, claiming event, $10,500 to $12,500 tags. These are 3-year-olds and up, scheduled for 1 mile and 1/16th on the grass.
Okay, well, Chilkoot Trail is going to be the pick in here for trainer Mary Epler. He's got something in common here with Mini Punt, who's the favorite. Both of them have not won 2013. They were blank in 2013. But it looks like he's coming into the race with a good series, 6 works to put him right on the beam after Mary gave him a few weeks off after a steady campaign in 2013. Looked like they might have sent him away for January and February. They brought him back at Laurel in March, set him down with a half and 50 and 1/5. And he's had 5 other works since that initial work, including a bullet here at Pimlico on the slop. So a good combination of Mary Epler, veteran trainer, and Horatio Karamanos, who's just been tearing him up on the turf here.
Yeah, and I think, it's 6-1 on the morning line, and that might hold up A on the layoff and B on the last race. But that last race, obviously, on the dirt, and I handicapped Aqueduct yesterday, and there were a couple of horses on the card similar that were moving back to the turf now after having ended last season on the dirt. But I get a feeling that horses like this maybe, hey, let's try the dirt because we won't get another chance at the grass, so maybe we can keep going this winter if the horse runs well on the dirt. And when they don't, they say, okay, let's go back to plan A, put the horse in the barn and just wait for the grass to come back. So I think that last race may darken the form, help the odds.
Yeah, and this horse had run in starter races last year, 7,500 and starter handicap, starter allowance. So dropped him in for the nickel, which maybe gets him eligible for some, since he's 7 now, some races down the road with a condition of starter nickel.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, very good.
I don't know.
You might be right on that. That may be the thinking, absolutely, because that would open things up very nicely for those 5 starters, which are typically a little bit salty and can be a lot of fun. All right, let's look out at the 5th race today. The conditions. Conditional claimer, 20 to 25 tags, non-winners of 2 lifetime, 3-year-olds and up. It is a 5-furlong sprint on the turf.
Yeah, well, Dude Dancer set foot on the turf course at Laurel sprinting back in October, broke the maiden with a big 7-wide move from the 13 hole, and then came back and kind of disappointed after that big move as the favorite, a little bit flat. And again, just almost a similar pattern here as our pick in the 3rd race. They put him on the dirt and the slop, and he was kind of drubbed in a 12-25 non-winners at 2. But he's back to the turf and freshened up a little bit. Trainer Lynn Albert, not your household name trainer, but does a really great job here, and she's actually pretty good with this layoff coming off 139 days away. It's a pretty decent record here. Interesting though. I believe Karamanos rode him last year, but where does he go in this spot? I think it's an interesting race. I don't think he's essential. I think you got to use the 5, Sachi Kamule in there as well. Hammy Smith. The only time he tried the turf in recent times was over this course last spring, and that was a tough field. RBS, who was 5th in there was Won the War, who's been kicking around on the dirt with the likes of Super Knight and a couple of other really nice sprinters on the turf. So that was a salty spot to try the turf, but looks like he might be a horse who's an interesting price here from a barn that's red hot at the meet, the 5, Sachi Kamule. I'm going to look at the 8 and 5 in the 5th race.
Yeah, as you're talking about the 5 is kind of interesting to me as well. With, as you say, the barn, according to the Racing Farm stats, 8 exacta finishes and 15 starts at the meet. Yeah. That's pretty good. But, yeah, I think folks will look down at that turf race and just might not consider the condition. It was much saltier. So this horse today is finding a little bit of an easier competition on the grass, and certainly improvement could be expected. And I think the price will warrant maybe taking a little bit of a look at that one as well.
Dig in that chart in that race, if you're familiar with Maryland racing and Delaware, the Mid-Atlantic Circuit, you'll see some salty runners in that spot. That wasn't an easy spot for him.
Very good. Let's shift our attention now out to race 8 this afternoon. An allowance, non-winners of one other than this. These are fillies and mares, 3-year-olds and up. They will go 3/4 of a mile.
Well, Trevor McCarthy, 120 pounds there on number 12, Gentle Officer. You notice one thing, the apprentice mark is missing. Trevor McCarthy has ended his apprentice year.
Oh, okay. So, is today the first day?
Yes, correct.
Oh, this will be interesting then.
Yeah. Well, Victor Carrasco made the transition. He's having a pretty good meet, maybe a little bit slow after he lost the bug, won the Eclipse Award at Laurel. Took him a while to get back in stride, but trainers never really gave up on him. He was just, in a bit of a little mini slump after that, and I think they'll still gravitate to Trevor. He's just a really good rider, and also to Victor Carrasco. They're kind of paving the way here at the Pimlico session. But in any case, he's not an apprentice anymore. Gentle Officer, looking at her race at Delaware, watched it last night. She broke from the 6th hole, kind of settled in stride a little bit down the backstretch, let a couple of duelers go on with it. Upper stretch, she looked kind of like a 2-year-old, even though she was 3. Kind of a little bit green. She was on her left lead, finally switched around. She was looking around and looking about just a bit here. The trainer, Larry Murray, has been very patient, as he usually is with all of his horses, coming off a time away. And I'll tell you what, Larry Murray has been red hot this meet. There's a stat, time away 180-plus days on the turf. He was over for 5 years. Guess what? He broke that, and I think he not only won with one, but a couple of horses on the turf. So just an indication of how the barn is doing in, bucking some statistical trends. On the main track, on the dirt, he does fine with a layoff, but turf had been a question. That is until this meet. In any case, getting back to Gentle Officer, I think she's a filly who's grown up perhaps a little bit. They've taken their time with her. And again, a bit of greenness still about her. She's got that good outside draw. Has to beat another horse coming off a time away, much more time away. That's Miss Moonshine from the Trombetta barn. A key scratch in the race of number 3, Loveheart, who I kind of liked in there, but I think they took a look at the competition and said, you know what, we might get lost in the shuffle down inside. Maybe an easier spot in a week or two for us here.
And with the big field, there certainly should be some value. And I like the 12 also on the angle. And mostly for me, it's from 2 to 3. But even with lightly raced horses like this, it can be 3 to 4. You talked about the horse being a little bit green last year. I think 2-year-olds, when they're lightly raced and they get time off and come back as 3-year-olds, or, as I say, even lightly raced 3-year-olds coming back as 4-year-olds, I think a lot of times they come back and they just have that added maturity, and you can see some nice improvement in that return.
You know what? I just noticed as well in her last race at Delaware, her maiden win, I think that's Silver Frame who was 3rd in there, if I'm not correct, unless there's another horse named similarly. I'm looking at the abbreviation. That filly's been on a roll here. Recently won on the turf with Shepherd and won a mile race at Laurel Park, kind of an improving runner there. So I'm beginning to like her a little bit more. I was off the maiden score.
Sounds good. All right, Dave, before we let you go, just did want to touch on quickly, you got about a minute left, but coming up this weekend, there's another stakes on the card Saturday. This one is for state-bred fillies and mares, 3-year-olds and up. The Geisha, $75,000 purse, mile and a 16th. Short field, but Celtic Katie, to me, looked a little bit interesting from Chris Grove off the second place finish in the Conniver. Steady and Love is certainly in some pretty good form right now. Addison Run for, again, Larry Murray is coming off some pretty good finishes as well. Again, it's a short field, but it's kind of interesting.
Well, I like Addison Run and Brenda's Way, the two fillies on the outside here. Addison Run, a half to Fleet Gold Digger, who's really not a lot, but at least one going a route of ground. The second dam of this filly is a horse that won the Grade 2 La Cañada out in California at 1 mile and an 1/8. So I wouldn't worry about the stretch out for her. And Brenda's Way comes back 9 days rest. I told trainer Damon Dilladovico, if you can get her to run the way she did in that wire-to-wire score at Laurel January 9th, I think she's a stakes horse because she put up a really good number for that kind of level that day. And she's surprised by stretching out last time out 9 days ago and getting put up first by disqualification in that race. But can't knock her last race. She relaxed a little bit more. Trevor McCarthy had her off the rail, kind of to get her relaxed, not so she wouldn't get too aggressive. And she's very quick early. Maybe they found themselves a decent route horse rather than a sprinter like they thought all along. So I like the outside runners, Addison Run, Brenda's Way. I'm not sure whether Steady and Love's coming into the race in best form, having been beaten by that maiden last time out. Yeah.
All right, and that is the Geisha on Saturday. Dave, again, as always, we appreciate the visit. Good luck this afternoon. And again, next week, it is Derby week, so as we get close, start to formulate some opinions because we'll ask everybody next week for a Derby selection. So keep that in mind.
Yeah. I got my long shot already. I think he's going to get it. Commanding Curve, is he's kind of on the bubble, isn't he?
He's 21 right now, so
right.
He's sitting out there looking. And Ring Weekend, maybe, I guess, is on the fence, so maybe if that one stepped aside, yours gets in. But a lot of people, there's been some buzz over the past week. Commanding Curve, if he gets in, I think he may be one of the wise guy horses.
I hate to get on the buzz horses. This is a problem. I don't know. Maybe I'll take it off of them now. We'll find out next week.
All right. We'll check in with you next week. And again, we'll talk to you then.
Okay, Seth.
Dave Rodman from Pimlico. That brings us to the end of Racing Across America for Thursday. Just before we let you go, want to reiterate a few promotional items from Capital OTB. Mainly tomorrow, mark it on your calendar if you haven't already. Come on down here to the Clubhouse Racebook, 711 Central Avenue in Albany, the $500 happy hour bankroll. Tim Wilkin, Mike Jarbo from the Times Union will be administering the bankroll. At about 2 o'clock, 25 patrons will be randomly selected to participate in the bankroll. So come on down from 2:30 to 6:30. Tim Wilkin, Mike Jarbo will be placing their bets with the $500 bankroll. Again, that's right here at the Clubhouse Racebook, 711 Central Avenue in Albany. Also coming up next week here at the Clubhouse Racebook, a week from today, Thursday, May 1st, 7 p.m., it will be the Kentucky Derby Seminar. I'll be on the panel along with Brian Nadeau from HorsePlayerNow.com. And just a quick reminder, if you're playing in the Capital OTB Handicapping Series, the May edition will happen on May 10th. The Triple Threat, the May edition of the Handicapping Series here at the Clubhouse Racebook. All right, that's going to wrap things up for the Thursday edition of Racing Across America. Happy you took the time to join us. We're here every Monday through Friday from 10 until 11 a.m. At 9 a.m. it was the Handicapper Support. Jeff Carl and I gave you some ideas, so hopefully you can enjoy the races this afternoon, including cashing a few tickets. We'll see you again tomorrow morning.
You're watching OTB TV, a service of Capital Off Track Betting.